Haunted Michigan. Terrifying tales.
Hey everybody, welcome to Haunted Michigan. Throughout the whole month of October, we're going to take you through all the scariest and haunted places our state has to offer with some of the experts that know them best. Coming up here in this episode, we're going to talk to author Nicole Beauchamp. She wrote books called Haunted Bay City as well as Haunted Detroit, and she's got some pretty spooky stories to tell. Plus, Chicks and Spirits own Heather Childers. She's from the east side of Detroit, and yeah, she'll give us some spooky chills as well. But first, we're going to talk with Kat Tedsen. She's also an author of Haunted Travels of Michigan, Volumes 1, 2, and 3, and she's got some awesome stories to tell. Check out her website, hauntedtravelsmichigan.com. And without further ado, Haunted Michigan begins with Kat. Haunted Michigan, it's Meltdown here with Kat Tedsen. Kat, good to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we're going to get spooky here in just a second as you pull me off the air. Yeah. So Haunted Travels of Michigan, Volume 1, 2, and 3, those are your books. So tell everybody a little bit about those.
Well, that started way back in 2007, and we've since then traveled tens of thousands of miles around Michigan, investigating and researching hundreds of cases. Last count was like 350 or more, and that's just in Michigan because I've traveled across the U.S. too. And after all that, we collected about 35 cases we couldn't explain. And that represents the compilation of the Haunted Travels of Michigan case. They're the most compelling cases we investigated.
Okay, so yeah, so these 35 are still unexplained.
Right, and we do a lot of research. We're very objective, really skeptical. I mean, when you think we investigated all those cases and came up with 35 we couldn't explain, we're pretty objective. So yeah, that's if you're looking for the most haunted, it's Haunted Travels of Michigan trilogy.
Yeah. So in your estimation, is Michigan, I mean, we're here, I guess. Is Michigan one of the most haunted places around, or what state would you think, or where in the United States?
Well, I have traveled around the U.S., and I can't say I've investigated the states as thoroughly as Michigan. So I'm not going to comment on the other states, but I will say that Michigan has a lot of paranormal activity. It just doesn't have the history that some of the other states have. Like I've been to Philadelphia and Gettysburg, and of course, there's all kinds of history there. And I've been to the Deep South. I've been to the Myrtles Plantation, Louisiana. I've investigated a lot of plantations. So there's a lot of history there. So it's hard to say, but my specialty is Michigan, and there are quite a few cases here that were very compelling. And a lot of them were residential cases, so you're not going to see them in the Haunted Travels of Michigan book series. I don't write about those.
Well, Kat, we're super honored to have you here talking about this on Haunted Michigan. Now, it's funny you mentioned Gettysburg because I had an experience in Gettysburg.
Yeah.
As some people may have before, but long story short, we were going to go on one of those ghost tours of the battleground and at night and the whole thing. And we were in one of the houses, and we were all up on this third floor, which I guess is closed. The second floor is a bed and breakfast, and the first floor is like a restaurant. They turn into the parlor into the restaurant, right?
Yes.
And so we went up there. It was getting dark out. It was around 8:30 or so, and this guy was explaining to us how on this third floor, the soldiers would shoot down the street. And then when they were killed, they would drag their bodies across the room and put it on the other side. Yes. And so as this guy was talking, this 13, 14-year-old kid, he stopped the guy in the middle and he says, "Excuse me." And the guy's like, "Can I help you?" And there's like 20 of us up there. And I look over and he says, "Somebody has their hands on my shoulders." I'm like,
and I assume there was nobody there.
Nobody next to him. I'm like, and this kid was like, "What is a ghost?" I'm like, "Oh my God."
Yeah, that would be a little unsettling. Yes.
Yeah, that was pretty wild. So, well, you don't want to comment on the rest of the country, which is fine. So let's talk about Michigan. So where do you find the most paranormal activity, or where is a lot of stuff come from? What part of the state?
Right. A lot in northwestern Michigan, northwest lower Michigan, like Traverse City, Sleeping Bear Dunes. I've gotten a lot of activity there. Mackinac Island. Of course, everyone considers the Grand Hotel is so haunted, but, I'm not sure that that's true. Mission Point Resort. They claim to be extremely haunted. And in fact, for about 5 years, my sister Bev and I held investigations at Mission Point. And I won't say that it's that haunted, but there is a location there called the Straits Lodge. And that does have some activity associated with it. And Mackinac Island, a lot of people don't consider Fort Holmes, which is a redoubt fort, which is at the very highest part of the island, and it was built to protect Fort Mackinac. We got some very interesting things there too. And we investigated Fort Mackinac. In fact, we were the first people that were given permission to investigate the fort. And I was a little disappointed that we didn't get more evidence because I was hoping for more, but it's a pretty creepy place.
So what when you talk about evidence, like tell us what you're looking for.
Well, I'm looking for actually a few things for evidence. 3 elements is my key thing. Number one, hopefully you're with somebody else. I always go with at least one other person so they can either validate something you hear or see, number one. Number two, record it. Record it. Don't expect someone to believe you because you had a feeling, right? And number three, the history. It's all about the history. So if we can get at least 2 of those elements, hopefully recording it and the history, then I can validate it as a paranormal event.
And so does your sister normally go with you?
She always has. Unfortunately, my sister was diagnosed with cancer back in 2012, and she passed in 2015.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, me too. We were tight. So since then, I've continued on my own. It's not the same, but I have a really good group of people that I work with that help me now on investigation. So we're still going.
Now, tell me some of the experiences, like I just told you about the one I had in Gettysburg. And I mean, is there anything that you can tell us that happened to you yourself that is hard to believe or crazy?
Well, yeah, yes. There's actually a few, and we don't have time for all of them, so I have to kind of pick and choose.
Sure, go ahead.
First of all, I've never been afraid. I've never screamed or run out of a place, nothing like that. But there was this place called Sam's Joint in Plainwell, Michigan, which is southwest lower Michigan. Unfortunately, it's torn down now.
Okay.
But it was built in 1833. It was, I think, the Red Brick Inn, and it was a trading post. It was a stagecoach stop. Anyway, we're in the basement, way in the back, and we come across these old safes down there, and they've been blown up, apparently the victim of a robbery, and they were all built in the 1800s. So we're in this area asking EVP questions, electronic voice phenomena.
Yeah.
And the EMF levels start rising like crazy. And I see this light bursting across the top of the room. Now, I don't believe in orbs as spirits. I'm one of those that don't believe it. But this I visually saw, and I thought that curious. And it was shortly after that my hand was touched. It wasn't no bleeding, nothing like that. It was just a gentle stroke. And from a small hand, I could feel it. And we got an EVP, none of us heard later on, that said, she's the one. And I don't know what that means, but the voice didn't sound human. It sounded like, she's the one kind of a thing. So that was strange.
Now, wait a second. You said let me get this straight. You didn't hear it at first, but you caught it later in the tapes?
Right. Yeah. I mean, most investigations, unlike sometimes on TV, most times you don't have any experiences when you're at the investigation. It's only when you're reviewing the audio or video later that you might record something. So that was the only time I was physically touched. Now, my sister was scratched, the only time I've seen that happen. So I know for a fact it can happen on investigations. It's not just good TV. But that was at Mansfield Reformatory in Ohio. So that's not our topic of discussion right
But that place, I've been there.
Yeah, you have?
Yeah, it's closed now.
It's intense.
Yeah. And apparently, if my memory serves me, you can spend the night there for like $60. Well, at least when I went there, it was about 10 years ago or something, correct?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I back when I was involved, it was $100, which I think is ridiculous. I don't pay for investigations, I don't. But I was there like 3 or 4 times where I'd get in around 6 and I wouldn't leave till dawn. And only one time did I ever record anything, but it was a doozy. It was when my sister was scratched and we recorded an EVP that said, got you. And someone saw a shadow running down. Before all this happened, we saw a shadow running down solitary confinement. And then she got scratched, and then we got the EVP. So I consider that a valid piece of evidence, you know.
That is awesome. So you just brought it up, jails. Now, of course, prisons, they're kind of known to be kind of haunted, aren't they?
Well, they are, you know, I'm not sure that they are. I have been to a few prisons, Moundsville in West Virginia, Jackson Prison, Old Jackson Prison in Jackson, Michigan. And, you know, some of them are very intense. And I think when something looks dark and creepy like Mansfield or Moundsville, your psyche already starts freaking out. So you sometimes think you experience something when you don't. But we have recorded some pretty interesting things at Jackson Prison. And the most intense place is in the tunnels. I think those tunnels, I don't even know if you can do investigations there anymore, but the tunnels are where they would have prisoners moving from place to place. And they're really small. I'm 5'5". I'm not a very tall person, but even for me in the tunnels, I had to like scoot down and I couldn't reach my hands out. It's very narrow. And they did that so that these prisoners, when they're moving them from location to location, couldn't fight. You know, when you're stooped over and you can't reach your hands out, you can't get a good fight. So that was pretty intense. But sometimes the most creepiest locations are not necessarily the most haunted. We did a case it was a private residential case. And this woman had crazy poltergeist activity, which means objects moving. Her whole kitchen was destroyed. We went in her basement. The entire ceiling of her basement had come down. And I don't want to share the whole story, it takes too long, but we identified what the problem was, and it was actually something attached to her. And the home she was in was only 2 or 3 years old. And, you know, we checked the land it was on. The land, it was just farmland, so nothing there, but we found out the activity actually connected to her.
Now,
but anyway,
here in Michigan?
Yeah, that was in Michigan. In fact, it was in the Metro Detroit area.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, you probably know the location.
All right, then I don't want to say anything.
No, don't say anything. No, don't. Let them guess.
All right, fair enough. Did you write about that in any of your books?
Stepping into Darkness, we did. That's the only residential case that we ever discussed.
Really?
We don't give the right names. We don't give the location, but the account of what happened is straight up. So yeah, that's Stepping into Darkness.
Yeah. Over the weekend, I just went to Bonehead's Barbecue in Willis.
Yes.
And
I heard that has activity.
Yeah, you've never been there, huh?
No.
Oh yeah, that's cool. And it's this time of year, it's really fun. And I guess, you know, getting closer towards Halloween, they decorate the place.
Oh yeah,
crazy with everything. But there's also a hotel right down the street. I heard the Willis Inn or the Willis Hotel or something along those lines.
I think I was there back in like 2008. I'm pretty sure that name rings a bell. I'd have to look. I've investigated so many, I can't remember. But we didn't, if I was there, we didn't get anything because it's not in my books.
Yeah, right. So what about the UP? Is there a lot of places up in the UP?
There are quite a number of places. Not everything we could record activity. Seshwa Point Lighthouse, we got some incredible things going on at Seshwa. And we went to, there was a horrible disaster in Michigan called the Italian Hall disaster, which is in Calumet, Michigan, which is more in the western section. And that is a very tragic story about Christmas Eve. There were coal miners, they were on strike, they didn't have any money. So the unions kind of pooled whatever money they had and decided to have a Christmas party at the Italian Hall, which is in Calumet. And it was for the children, and they were going to give out little gifts, sing Christmas songs and all that. And they packed way too many people into this little hall. And at some point during that event, someone called fire. Now, back in those days, those places were tinder, you know, fire, it would just poof. So everyone panicked, and like a giant swell, they turned and rushed toward the single exit.
Mm,
And people started falling and tripping down the stairs, and they couldn't get through, and they ended up dying by the score. Most of them were children.
mm.
So the Italian Hall itself is gone now. They just have a memorial, but they were taken to the Calumet, dead, unfortunately, were taken to the Calumet Theater, the older section. And we investigated that, and we did get some interesting evidence at the Calumet. So yeah, Szechuan Point, Calumet, of the places I investigated in the UP, we got some interesting things.
Yeah. And you say like, kids and little things like that. Can you tell when you're doing this kind of stuff if it's an older person or a younger person, or is that kind of you just kind of guessing at that?
Well, I would say yes. So far, I've been able to determine a child or more of an adult spirit. If we record an EVP and we know a child has died there and the EVP sounds like a child, that's a confirmation. Again, we don't just record something, we look for the history. And there was one case in, I believe it's Waterford, Michigan, and it was the Carriage House Bed and Breakfast. They thought a small child spirit was there because there was a short shadow person. They thought a little boy's voice and a few other things. So we investigated there, and we actually recorded one of the clearest EVPs ever. And this was at the end of the investigation. We were sitting in the kitchen of this 1865 house. And most of the team was outside packing their gear, and there was like 3 or 4 of us in the kitchen. I always keep my audio recorder on until I'm in the car and we're driving away. So I had placed my audio recorder on the table, and we're just chatting, and this little boy's voice came in and said, "I got chills from the milk," just out of the air. And it's like, what the heck? And it took months of research, but we absolutely found who that little boy was and what those words meant. And that, it still gives me chills when you can connect that sort of thing together and validate it.
Yeah, the hair's standing up on my my arms right now. That's crazy. So is there certain times of the year that just has just more activity than other times?
Actually not,
No?
to be
Okay.
very honest with you. We have found paranormal activity at all times of the day and the week.
Mm.
Um, all seasons. And I know some people say, oh, it's a Halloween time and the veil is thinner. I don't know if that's especially true. But I will say this, we have found increased paranormal activity when we can connect a sun flare impacting the Earth's atmosphere.
Hmm.
And we were doing some research on that, and we found a lot of the cases where we got activity, there had been sun flare impact in the Michigan area. And that includes an investigation we did in Bath, Michigan. That's another disaster, a terrible one involving a school bombing and stuff like that. But we had investigated this for 4 or 5 years. And it was this one year, one moment in time where we just got incredible EVPs. And we found out there had been a sun flare. And at that time we were there, it was supposedly impacting the Michigan area.
Hmm.
So anyway.
Now, if somebody was like, this listening to this or watching this and just wanted to go someplace where, you're pretty sure you could get some activity, maybe some chills or whatever, is there a place you'd suggest?
Well, chills can be any place that looks creepy.
Right.
If you get a creepy place, you're going to get chills whether there's something there or not. So, Eloise right now is creepy. I've been there recently. But people need to know the Eloise that's standing right there is the administrative offices. It's not the actual asylum. It did have patients in there, but they weren't the extreme cases.
Uh-huh.
And believe it or not, I know I'm so youthful looking, but when I was a young college student, Psych 101, I actually had to go to Eloise for
That
one
was
of
back in the 90s, by the way. So go ahead.
yeah, 97, 98, something like that,
You and me both, yeah.
And I can tell you that if there's paranormal activity anywhere, it's going to be in one of the other buildings. But I'm not going to say Eloise today doesn't. I didn't experience anything when I was there, but I'm hard, I'm really tough with that. But it is very creepy. So if you want to be creeped out, it's just ugly looking. The other place to go would be, I'm trying to think of creepy places. Well, if the tunnels were still open in Jackson, Michigan.
Yeah.
But if you want real paranormal activity, here's the kicker. The Whitney restaurant in Detroit, Michigan has reputedly crazy paranormal activity.
Mm-hmm.
And that was actually one of the very first places we ever investigated. And I will say that place was crazy, but between the hours of 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. And it was the second floor was the epicenter. And research, amazing research, months of research. And I'm pretty sure I know who's on the second floor and why they're there. But if you can be at the Whitney between 2 and 3, you might get something. There's a piano that goes off almost all the time. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Another place that has activity is, well, it's atmospheric. It's the Terracin in Petoskey, Michigan. And it's perfectly atmospheric because it has the creaking floorboards, and it looks like, the late 19th century, early 20th century. And there is paranormal activity in the dining room, which is really pretty. It's very historical looking. In the wee hours of the morning, you might get activity in the dining room. And if you go into the basement, if they let you down there, way in the back of the basement in a side room, we had a baby carriage move there. We believe there's a 14-year-old boy who haunts it. The stories in, of course, our book, but and we captured this great EVP. There had been a group of, 3 people in that back room asking EVP questions. And when they left, the audio recorder was stationed there, and nothing happened while they were there. About 20 seconds after they left, we got this clear EVP from it sounded like a teenage boy that said "fools." My favorite EVP ever.
I stayed at the Henderson Castle about 6 months ago. Have you been there?
Yes.
Yeah. What did you think of that place?
I loved it. It's beautiful, but as far as paranormal activity, I got absolutely
Nothing.
zero.
Yeah, is that right? Yeah. Yeah, they say Mr. Henderson walks the ground sometimes or something, and it could be just, old ghost stories, but it's interesting.
Well,
That's a great place.
it is a great place. It is beautiful. And, you don't get design or styling or building like that today.
Right. True.
So I did enjoy it. Yeah, a few. And then there's another place out in Saugatuck I went to. God, I can't remember the name of that one, but it's another one where they say they have melon-head children walking around, and the Felt Mansion. That's it.
Okay.
Beautiful, but we never recorded any activity there, but it's still very cool.
Well, I'll tell you what, Kat, it's been really a pleasure talking to you. Let's give your engagements a plug in your website. What's your website people can check you out at?
Sure, it's hauntedtravelsmi.com. That's Haunted Travels MI. And I've got a few things coming up. I'm going to be doing a few presentations in Lansing this year. So you can go to the Capital Area District Library and they'll show the events, or you can go to the website. I've posted the events there, but I'm going to be at the Otsego Library October 5th, and I'm going to be in downtown Lansing October 20th, and I have one Zoom presentation kind of fit in there too. But you can check the website, it gives details. And then on November 6th, I'm going to be speaking at the Mid-Michigan Paranormal Convention, which is at the casino in Mount Pleasant.
Mount Pleasant, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so that'll be fun and spooky. So come on out and see me. I got more stories.
Excellent. Well, Kat, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for your time and your knowledge and your expertise.
Thank you for having me.
Up next, it's Heather Childers from Chicks and Spirits. You can check them out all over the internet on all the social media platforms. She's got her own spooky stories to tell of ghost haunts and ghost hunts. And there she is, Heather from Chicks and Spirits. Hey, Heather, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Doing well, as a matter of fact. First of all, before we start, I love the support for the Vietnam Veterans of America. And did I see your email earlier that you're a recruiter as well?
No, for them, no. I started doing a food drive every Christmas after my father passed away because
Okay.
he was a vet, and it was just something I wanted to do to remember him each year instead of like being sad around Christmas.
Hmm.
So I kind of put this food drive together every year. So, with a couple I'm sorry, with the Veterans of America, with them, we partner with them because they have a Christmas program that they do. So I'm like, well, let's just do this all together. So we started helping other paranormal groups kind of like get involved with us. We raise a lot of food. I mean, mind you, we're going into our 4th year. So I'm trying to build on this as we are small. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
we've been able to get a U-Haul full of food, a good amount of money for them. And I just want to keep growing every year. So this is a real passion for me to really give back to the veterans because their food drive, it's needed. These other pantries, they get a lot of attention, and this one really doesn't get that much attention. So it's like, let's put some light on it. I have a little bit of a platform with, the paranormal group that I have. So if I can do anything positive with that, giving back to the veterans is a passion of mine and everybody else that's in my team. So,
Well, you definitely hit me up near Christmas time because I love to donate and help you out a little bit.
oh,
Okay.
I would love that. It would mean so much to us. So,
Yeah,
and
for
them,
sure. Yeah.
big need over there for sure.
No doubt. So you just talked about your passion being that, and also your passion, the paranormal. So
Yes.
chicks and spirits, as I started this project, I realized there was a lot of women that are into this kind of stuff, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. Like when I started doing this, it was me and a few friends, and it's kind of like, I'm older. I'm just gonna put it out there. Not really into like the bar scene and stuff like that. So I'm like, well, let's find something that we can do besides going to a bar. So I kind of put this together. Like I kind of mapped out little urban legends in our area, and we went out on a girls' night out, and I'm like, this was so much fun. Like, let's just do this all the time. So so then I just started this, and more women have came out. I was kind of just like, hey, anybody that wants to come aboard, let's do this. And it just started building and building. And then, but having a lot of women to kind of, organize became a lot. So like, maybe not so many. So then we started doing events and everything. I'm like, how about everybody just come out to the event and we'll do stuff like that. And I'll kind of minimize how many people are actually on the team because it's a lot to organize. So I keep up.
Yeah, I believe so. So how long have you been like doing the paranormal thing? I know just before we started, you said you've been doing it, for a long time, but I mean, how long?
This group I've had for about almost 4 years now.
Okay.
So
But
yes.
you started this back when you were a kid, like you started becoming interested in this kind of thing, correct?
Oh yeah, my mother, she was a psychic, and a lot of weird things that I've seen, and it seems like it always follows me that no matter what, I can't leave this. Something's always going to be like, no, come on back, come on back. So I'm like, okay, this is what I like to do. It's interesting, and I really just like being a part of this, being a part of the community. And I didn't realize how much there was until like I started doing this. I'm like, there's a whole world out there of this stuff. So
That's
it's like,
right.
I don't feel like such a weirdo. I have other weirdos out here that like are just like me. And I felt awesome. So yeah, it's a good thing.
Are you into horror movies and stuff too?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I always say I'm the pumpkin queen. I am Halloween 24/7 all year long. People are like, when do you start decorating for Halloween? I'm like, that's just my house. Like, when do you you don't like, so yeah, into all of that.
So we've been talking with people, of course, and this is about like the haunted places in Michigan. So have you been to a lot of places around Michigan? Just to preface this by telling everyone right now that you're on the east side of Detroit.
Right.
So have you been all around Michigan?
Yes, it seems like there's really not much close. So yeah, we do travel out. So we've been all over the place. We've been up to Houghton Lake. We've been, in Detroit. We've been, Eaton Township. We're all over the place. So we just, wherever we find something, we just go, and we look up some of us look up the stories. Some people don't want to know till they get there, but we kind of just, see what we can get into and just go. And a lot of times we find a lot of owners that they're trying to like reestablish their place, build it up, make it nice again. And I really love that. So when I find places like that actually invest into these old structures, then, we really go out of our way to help these locations too, to see what we can do to raise money. Because, like the sixth precinct, we unfortunately, that, owner passed away, but when he was going, we did a fundraiser for him and raised money to help him get a hot water tank. So we do things. And with that one, I was kind of afraid of cornfields. I'm not a big fan. So everybody's like, you know what would be awesome? Let's raise money and throw Heather in a cornfield by herself. And I'm like, I mean, fine. If it's to help out, sure. So we did, and I did. So, but like I said, I like to do good things for people, even if it means I suffer.
Malachi and Children of the Corn are not one of your favorites, probably.
Yes. No.
Have you seen it? Did you watch the movie Pearl yet? Have you seen that?
No. Is it cornfields?
There's a cornfield scene in there. Yes, very much so.
I did not conquer my fear. I'll tell you that. That's what I was supposed to do. And they're like, you want to do it again? I'm like, no, I don't like them. I don't like where I can't see if someone's going to shank me. Like, I'm just not a fan of that. Little kids.
I got you. Yeah.
Like, not a fan.
So as far as traveling around, I've been asking everybody, have you had an experience yourself or multiple experiences?
Yeah, we've had multiple experiences. The one I'm sharing tonight is going to be Stimson Hospital.
And refresh our memory. What part of the state is that in?
That is like Eaton Township out there. So
whereabouts is that? Do your hand thing.
Oh gosh, I don't even know. I'm not good at that stuff.
We'll have to look it up. So okay.
I could be totally wrong. I know the owners, Pam and Chris, are going to be like, Heather, seriously, but I love this location. If people want to look it up, they can actually like go to Facebook and just put in Stimson Hospital and get all the details. They actually run tours out of here because they're building this place up too. So, but we were there. We've been there a few times, and I shared with you a picture that I got there. So I was, this was a hospital. Well, first it was a house for like 40 years, and then it was turned into a hospital. So we're talking not like a normal hospital. This is like an old hospital. So it has a morgue. I mean, we have everything in here, right? So we go in here.
It was a house first?
Yes, for about 40 years, this was a house. Okay. And then it was bought and they turned it into like about 1919, they turned it into a hospital. Okay. So the doctor that actually was there was two doctors there. And the one, about 6 months after he was at this location, Dr. Blanchard was his name, he actually fell down an elevator shaft right on his head. Sorry guys to be gruesome, but and obviously was deceased. And a lot of deaths took place in this one location, like over 2,000. And they would house like women, giving C-sections. And back then, like a lot of those, the mothers and the children didn't always make it, out of that. So a lot of deaths took place here. So on this particular night that we were there, we're completely lights out. I'm just taking pictures in the corner. And I try to tell people, like, when you're doing this stuff, it's kind of like a stakeout, not all the time you're going to get something. So you just got to be patient, and I'm sitting there and take a picture, and all of a sudden this picture pops up and it's like a full person. So I'm like, I'm not going to lie. I love doing this stuff, but when I do catch something, I'm like, turn the lights on. Like, I do get a little freaked out. I'm going to keep it real. So I was like, turn the lights on. So we turn the lights on. I'm like, look what I got. And then I put it on my Facebook and stuff. And everybody's been in a big debate about this picture because they're like, some people think it's a geriatric patient. I think it looks like a pregnant woman. It's just circulated. And it's like, just been it's a very interesting picture that was like very intense that we got. I've never caught anything. Like, I've seen shadows, we've seen things, but to actually catch something on film like that, it was pretty amazing for me.
And how long ago was that?
Oh, probably about 2 years ago was that one. And then we went back and we were able to get additional. I mean, there's just, this place is always very interesting, is what I like to say about locations.
And that's in Eaton. So you go on these tours and stuff, and you saw this and you took the picture, but when you're on the tours with these other people and stuff, are other people have you ever been around where people have been touched, or, things have happened, with other people in your group?
Well, when we actually host a lot of tours. So when people come out to our tours, there is a lot of, like, we like to, the activity, we give people tools to use, because I always tell people, I can do this a million times, all day long and tell you guys everything, but until you actually experience it, does it become real to you? So I try to, when people are on tours, give them certain tools that they can use. Dowsing rods are big with my team. They're kind of like, back in the day, they were used to find water, and it kind of like is a way for spirits to communicate with people. So that's really big with our group, is the dowsing
Explain.
rods.
Stop that for 1 second. So
Okay.
explain to people that don't know what that is. Is that something you put on over the ground? I think I know what you're talking about. But show me like what you mean.
Okay, so they're like they kind of look like antennas, I guess, but like turned straight out. So they're like kind of like sticks. So
Okay.
you hold them up and you ask questions, and they'll swing. So like if it's yes, you kind of establish your yes or no's. So when you're asking a question and it's okay, yes, it'll swing. No, it'll open up. Sometimes it won't do nothing. Like I said, we can't, you can only do what you can do if
Right.
something wants to communicate with you. So, but the dowsing rods are really nice, but it's really, you got to make sure, because they were back in the day used to find water and stuff like that. So you have to always make sure what you're using, where your location is. You know what I mean? You got to figure out your element so you can make sure that nothing's kind of really false. But those are a real nice one. Like, we really like using the dowsing rods, and people get a lot of experiences. A lot of people, like, we've done things where we've had to take people out because they started, getting sick. I won't get too graphic, but like, things happen to people when they're out on these things. So we always tell people, be careful, make sure, even though we always try to say like, this is entertainment, but things do get real out there for people. And we just tell people when they come out, take it seriously. Don't come in here. Like, we've had people trying to mess around. Oh, no, no. Next thing you know, the guy they didn't believe is puking in the corner because something touched him, and now he's freaked out. So I'm like, told you, be careful out here, so. But it's very interesting. It's very interesting what people catch, and I enjoy when people do, because then they'll message us back after the tour, after they go through their stuff, and be like, "Oh my God, look what we got! Look at this picture!" And just for them to have that moment, it's very. I love that. You know what I mean? I love that people can experience these things.
Now, you host the tours. Do you go on anybody else's tours around the state?
Um, Truthfully, at this time, I haven't been able to, because if I do, I'm usually helping my friends with their
Yeah.
tours,
Yeah.
or kind of tagging along. But it gets so busy during this season for me. So it's like, when I got into this stuff, it kind of just started taking off, that I've always kind of had something going on. So I try, like, right away, I was hosting events in Houghton Lake, like right away. And it's just been going. So I try to get out to people's events, but yeah, it's hard. But I do go with a lot of my friends, like DPX and stuff like that. When they're doing tours, they'll always say, "Hey, come check out this location with us," and we'll host tours too. And we just all kind of work together and just help out these locations.
What was the most frightened you've been in an experience?
Well, it wasn't actually doing that, like, before the team was established. Actually, I was in, can I talk about another state? Or am I
Yeah.
supposed to stay just in
Yeah, I
Michigan?
guess you can, sure.
Okay. So I was actually with my kids. We went out to this horror convention called Horror Hounds out in Indiana. And we stayed at this like Airbnb out there. And it was like, kind of like, the house was a little, whatever, a little weird. But so I'm sleeping. Well, my son comes down and borrows a charger, and I'm like, okay. And then I'm go to sleep, and I feel like somebody pressing over me, and they're staring at me. So I'm like, look up, and I'm like, I don't need the charger back. Like, just go ahead. And he wouldn't like leave. And I'm like, what do you want? Like, to my kid, I'm like, what, go to bed, And then he gets up and starts, like, gets off the couch, like his hands off the couch, and starts walking towards the kitchen. And I'm like, what the heck is he doing? So I started following him, and I'm like, hey, Cody, my son. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why are you going to the kitchen? And I'm literally following what I thought was him. I turned on the light, and there was nothing there. So I'm like, did somebody just sneak in this? So I checked the doors. I'm like, was somebody just in this house? Everything was locked. So I did what everybody does when you're scared. You go back and you put the covers over your head, and you force field yourself into safety. So that's kind of what I did. And the next morning, I was like, I told the kids and everything. They're like, oh my God, Ma, I didn't want to tell you this, but like, I really felt like somebody was staring at me. And I'm like, why wouldn't you tell me that? Like, that should have been day one. We talked about this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not when
Yeah,
we're
it's like
leaving.
rule number one, right? Exactly.
Yeah, like, come on, man. So that was very scary, because I'm like, it was literally over me. And when the realization that nothing was there freaked me out. So I was like, that was really scary. And now I want to go back there, though, now that I'm like I'm a trained professional.
Yeah, trade professional, right? Exactly.
So, yeah. But
So,
yeah.
so since you're so close to Detroit, do you spend a lot of time down there doing this kind of stuff?
I mean, I used to when the 6th precinct was going, and we've done stuff with like, well, Eloise is like Westland, but we would
Right.
do stuff over there. And that's basically like we do some residentials over here. Like people will contact us and say, hey, something's going on in my house. I really have to know the person to do something like that. I'm
Mhm.
not just gonna, for people out there listening, can't just go in everybody's house. But yeah, so we would do some residentials out here because some of these houses are very old. They have a lot of stories, and I mean, some of those have been more interesting than some of the places we've gone to. So we do a lot. We do a lot, and it's interesting and fun at times, scary at times. Your adrenaline gets up. It's definitely interesting.
Now, when you're doing these tours, of course, first of all, like explain like yeah, a typical tour. How many people are with your tour, and then how long does it usually last?
I mean, it varies with us. Like it depends on the location because sometimes our tours go, if we have a huge location, we may spread it out a little bit longer. So people will spend time with us, maybe about an hour or hour and a half with us going through everything. And then we kind of let them free roam themselves. I mean, there's been tours where we've done it for about 2 hours going around to locations and then let people kind of free roam for an hour. So about 3 hours with us.
Mhm.
And then, you know, we let them at any time, use our stuff and, but we want to show them like this is how things are. But we tell people like I said, it's kind of like a stakeout. It's not always going to be so active because people will come and they'll be like, uh, make the ghost wiggle some stuff around. And we're like, it doesn't work like that. Like I'm not a get ghost whisper. Like just like I'm just here trying, have some fun. Like if it happens, it happens. But people will get mad. They'll be like, well, why haven't the spirits come? And I'm like, you gotta wait it out. Like I don't know
Yeah,
what to tell
maybe
you.
maybe they're sleeping. Who knows? So,
Yeah, they don't want to talk right now.
have you given tours where people have done the free roam thing and just have come back like just like on just mesmerized by what they saw or felt or whatever?
Oh yeah, we've had, and a lot of times when we actually do let them free roam, they still stay right by us because they still like, well, how's that? But usually people when they do, they love the pictures they get. They'll come back and be like, look at this, look at this, look at this, and oh, something touched me or something this, and they really get very excited about that, and they're very. I've never had anybody leave our tour and say, yeah, I still don't believe. Like skeptics are usually like, wow, like, yes, that's definitely, I always say interesting because I don't want to always call something what it may not be, but interesting. If I can't debunk it or anything like that, it goes into the interesting file. So,
Yeah, so when you're giving these tours and stuff, I mean, have you had like I asked before, like people touched or anything like that?
yes, I mean, people do get touched. We've had people where they feel like somebody grabbed their hand and started holding their hands and they freak out. And I guess the people get sick sometimes. I mean, you never know what you're gonna go into when you have a tour, but I mean, people always remember it. They remember that night they had with their friends, that's for sure, because it's something interesting is happening to them.
Yeah.
So,
And by the way, when you say Houghton Lake, is that the Houghton Lake down here or up in the UP?
up north,
Uh,
only about 4 hours away from me.
okay,
So
so down
yeah,
in the lower part of Michigan?
yeah. I mean, I guess like it's not all the way up in the UP, but it's
Okay,
up there.
all right, there's a Houghton Lake way up there too. I don't know why we can't figure out different names for lakes around here.
Yeah. Yeah, there's an inn out there where the Purple Hill Gang used to hang out, and we've hosted a tour out there that place was very interesting. We've had things come across the spirit box almost like because it was a brothel. So
Mm.
you're in there and we're women and we're getting called all types of names like just like
Whoa,
oh yeah, they're going.
you're hearing things?
Oh, well, the spirit boxes that we use will give off, it's a radio frequency. So it's
Yeah.
going to channel certain sounds. So all of a sudden you'll hear like someone talking and it'll be like cursing you out, like calling us all types of, I'm not going to say too much. I don't want to, you know, be bleeped every
You're
5
fine, you're
seconds,
fine.
but basically it's like, horror, but I mean, it's calling you every name in the book and you're just like, hey, knock that shit off.
Wow.
You're not going to talk to me like that. And you'll start smelling like cigar smoke. Like that will happen a lot too at certain places. Like you'll walk in somewhere and all of a sudden like you'll smell cigarettes at like a place where that probably took place. And it's like, wow, is that really weird, the things that happen sometimes.
Yeah, I was walking through the battlefield at Gettysburg, and I smelled something, and the whole group did that I still to this day can't explain, or it could have been anything, I suppose, but nobody in the group was smoking anything,
Right.
and it's a smell I'd never smelled before or after. I just can't explain it. It's just one of those things.
It's interesting, right?
Yeah. Do you know you've been doing this for a while, so do you think with the advent of like cell phone cameras and stuff, people take pictures and look at them right away, where before we would take pictures and have to take them, get them developed and stuff, and oh my God, look at this, is
Right.
like this sort of weird dichotomy now?
Well, I think with the phones is you're able to go faster with catching pictures.
Hmm.
So where before, when you would have like a normal camera, you'd be lucky to get something. Now I kind of like to look at, if you're popping off pictures, like I'm usually just going at it. You know what I mean? So there'll be a sequence where I can see, what happened before this actual picture took place. You know what I mean? So there's that sequence that you can see that where there was nothing here and all of a sudden something's here. You can watch your photo play out. And
Yeah.
I think that's really beneficial to doing this now.
And with video as well.
Oh, right. For sure. Especially like the iPhones or the pictures that have the video before. We've caught things off of that replay from the video. So when
Mhm.
people have those type of photos and they don't think they caught something, hit the playback of your photo and you never know what you may have.
Yeah. Well, listen, Heather, we'll let you split here. Chicks and Spirits, as it says right there behind you, paranormal investigators with a twist. Anything you want to plug? Any websites you can plug, or whatever your social media, whatever you got?
Yeah, I mean, we have Chicks and Spirits. I mean, go to our Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I also do, we do a Stay Spooky podcast. I have a true crime podcast that I'm actually doing at 8 o'clock tonight.
Oh,
So
cool.
that's called Chillin' and Killin' Crimecast. And yeah, that's fun. So go look that up. We do theme shows, so that's a good time. But check out our website. We have events, check out Stimson, the place we talked about. They're running events all October. And definitely when the food drive comes, people come help us out, donate, give us your time, collect food, anything that we could do to help the veterans. Super huge for me. So yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, definitely hit me up. I got to help you out with that. So, well, Heather, I
you.
really appreciate making your acquaintance, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It was nice meeting you. You have a good night.
Finally, for episode 1 of Haunted Michigan, we wrap it up with ghost hunter and author Nicole Beauchamp. She's the author of such books as Haunted Bay City, Michigan, and Haunted Detroit. We're getting into the real crux of the matter now. Check out some of the stories and some of the tales she shares. Hey, Nicole, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. How's things with you?
Wonderful. Thank you for having me.
So just give everybody a little bit of a brief history of what you do and your paranormal and all that kind of thing.
Well, my name is Nicole Beauchamp. I am a Michigan author and paranormal investigator. I write for Arcadia Publishing's Haunted America series. My 2 books include Haunted Bay City, Michigan and Haunted Detroit. And I'm currently working on book number 3. I also do paranormal investigations and ghost tours and different events all across the state throughout the year. So if you're ever interested in finding out more information about that, you can find me on social media at facebook.com/author Nicole, Nicole Beauchamp, Beauchamp.
Okay, so you talked about your 3rd book you're writing. Is there anything you can mention about that?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. All right. Fair enough. So you talked about your 2 books, Haunted Bay City, Michigan, and Haunted Detroit. So how long do you spend in each place? Kind of gathering information and hunting down different leads and different things like that.
Well, I've been investigating the paranormal since 2009 with my team, Tri-City Ghost Hunters Society. We've investigated all over the world, and with that I guess being in the team for that period of time, I've gathered a lot of information over the years as far as doing research. And so basically it's a compilation of research from all of my time being in the paranormal team that I have, and like going to each location and researching each location separately. So, I would say, well, it took me about 5 months to write the book. So, I mean, several weeks, I guess, for each chapter, but like I said, this has been kind of like an ongoing collective research project since the beginning.
Now, when you write a book like Haunted Detroit, do you actually stay down there?
I have. Yes, I have.
And where have you stayed at?
Well, I stayed at, I can't even think what it's called. I can't not remember the name of it. It's an old Victorian style, hotel. I want to say it's called I want to say Elmwood, but that's not what it's called, but something like that. But it's this really kind of cool Victorian inn, and they do say that it is haunted, but I wish I could remember the name.
So you stay there.
Midtown.
Yeah, you stay there on purpose because you're studying up on this stuff. And now I talked with somebody else before, and they said that the Whitney, and this has been brought up many times. So you've got to know something about the Whitney, correct?
Yes, actually, the Whitney is the cover of my book. Fortunately, the hotel is not in the book, or I would obviously remember the name of it. But yes, I did do a lot of research on the Whitney. I've been there many, many times, and I feel like I was able to collect some of the best ghost stories from there.
Is that right? So pass along one to us that that maybe sticks out in your mind.
Okay, so there was a woman who came to have a drink at the ghost bar, and she's just sipping her drink or whatever, and then of course she feels the urge to go to the bathroom because she's been having some drinks, and so she gets up, goes into the ladies' bathroom, and she's in there, and she sees a woman in there. Now she's talking to this woman, she's having a full conversation with this woman, comes back to the bar, and the bartender's like, I don't mean to pry into your life, but is everything good? You've been gone quite a long time. And she's like, oh, I was just having a conversation with the bathroom attendant in there. And he's like, ma'am, we don't have any bathroom attendants. So from the time and she was like dead set, she's telling, she starts yelling at the bartender. She's saying, you're hiding people in here. This happened. Like, I'm not lying to you. And so she just creates this whole uproar. And so it got back to management. So management goes back through, reviews all the security footage, and nobody other than this single woman came, out the bathroom or in the bathroom in that entire duration that she was there. So.
And what year are we talking about? When was this?
What year? I don't know if I know that for sure. I know it was fairly recently. At least it was in the century.
Okay.
Sure. 21st century for sure. But yeah, it wasn't that long ago, but I don't know if I could tell you definitively what exact year that was.
Now, what other places around Detroit did you find were haunted? And and what place do you think might be the haunted? I mean, we talked about the Whitney and stuff. Could that be the place, or is there places?
There was, when I do interviews for the book, and I got a really horrifying ghost story from Elmwood Cemetery. But
you got to tell us that now.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go through that. Even though it's horrifying, I don't think it's the most haunted location, but it is close.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a married couple. This was like the late 90s. They were, they went to the cemetery to visit a gravestone. And while they were there, they came across this monument. You might have heard of it. It's the Veiled Lady Monument. This tombstone is thought to be cursed because it had, basically, it's a scorned a woman who, her husband is thought to have had an affair on her with her sister. She passed away. Now she's coming back for revenge. Like, that's the whole legend surrounding it.
Mm-hmm.
So this woman, her name is Stacy. And when she was there with her husband, she touched the tombstone. But like I said, this tombstone is cursed because, after this whole issue happened with her husband, she was like, the tombstone fell off like 2 ships and broke a bunch of times, and just a bunch of weird stuff happened with it. But So she's there, she touches the tombstone, she thinks it's kind of cool looking. And as she's walking around the cemetery afterwards, she is getting the sensation like somebody is touching her neck. So she reaches up, doesn't feel anything there, but she keeps getting that sensation. So finally she's overcome by this feeling like, hey, we gotta go, we gotta get out of here. So her and her husband get into the car, and she's driving at this point, and she looks into the rearview mirror and she believes she sees this veiled apparition in the back seat. So, I mean, she screams bloody terror. She's done. And her husband's like, all right, it's been a long day. Why don't we switch places and, I'll drive home. So this woman is like shaking. She's traumatized at this point. Nothing has happened quite yet, but she just, she thinks she saw this veiled figure. So as the time is going on and she's at home, and her husband, he travels for work, so he, goes away. And one day, while she's at the house, she is sleeping on the couch. She's taking a nap, and then she opens her eyes. She looks at the basement door, and there's a veiled figure of a woman standing in front of it. And it's like this woman is kind of like limp, like her chin's, down on her chest. And so, I mean, she's already like, what the hell? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the way she described it, it reminded me almost of like the La Llorona. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. It's horrifying, but that's how she described it. Like, it was like a veiled figure, almost like a white gown, white veil. And then like the fingers were like mangled and dirty, and like almost like flesh was dripping. Like that's how she described it, like this horrifying sight. And this figure all of a sudden like hurries up and like comes up to her and then lunges at her. Now at this point she's getting scratches on her arms. So, she's just in total disbelief at what she's seeing. Then the figure proceeds to turn around, walks through the basement door, and leaves behind this malodorous scent of death.
Ugh.
So, I mean, now she's completely traumatized, and this just keeps going on, and she's, as the months are going on, her relationship is suffering. She's starting to pick at her food and not eat so much. She's starting to lose her hair. Just a bunch of really bad things are happening to her. So finally, her marriage ends up ending because, she's so traumatized, and it's destroying things between her and her husband.
Mm-hmm.
So then she moves in with her mother, and she goes to stay with her mom for a while. Well, her mom goes out one day to go get takeout, and she is in the house alone. She thinks she's going to be fine. So she goes, takes a shower. And while she's in the shower, because she had been out gardening all day, and she's just thinking, this will be a nice way to relax before I eat dinner. She sees through the shower curtain, there is a white veiled figure standing in the doorway watching her. And this shower curtain is kind of like semi-translucent, so she can see this figure. And then this figure proceeds to start walking up to her and reaches around the shower curtain. And like the lights are like glass bulbs are shattering. The lights go out. She's screaming. She picks up like the rod and is like swinging it around, trying to get this thing away. And on it, when her mom came home, like her mom could obviously tell that she was, traumatized beyond repair at that point. So
how did they get rid of this spirit?
She says she's still tormented to this day.
Really?
So she's telling people, stay the hell away from that veiled lady monument.
Oh my God. So that's down at the Elmwood Cemetery, like you were saying. What other places did you discover that had some sort of presence?
Yes. My favorite one is the Leland Hotel. I did so much research on that place and came up with so many news articles of people that either were in a freak accident, had killed themselves, were murdered, just tons of people, especially during the Great Depression. And there's a lot of people there who say they see phantom roof jumpers. There was a lady I interviewed named Deandra who actually was chased through the hotel by an apparition that had a bullet. I believe the bullet was through its neck.
Jeez.
So, and it was like in her room and pulling the covers off her, and just, I mean, this was going, I mean, the paranormal activity associated with her went on for several weeks. But yeah, they see all kinds of who they believe to be old mobsters, ghosts of old mobsters, ghosts of people killing themselves during the Great Depression. There's a really weird figure that is seen. I don't know if you've ever been to City Club, but going up the side stairs to the City Club,
Yeah.
I see like this figure that kind of scampers up on all fours and has like wild hair and
Man, it's been a billion years since I've been down to a City Club. Does my memory serve me correctly? Because I've been talking, emailing back and forth with a lot of you guys. Did you do stuff at Eloise?
I have not yet investigated Eloise, but I did hold my book release party there.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, so you haven't had a chance to go through it.
I went through parts of it during the day, but not at night. No.
Okay, gotcha. So have you yourself ever had like a crazy experience?
Yes, I have. And actually it was at historic Fort Wayne in Detroit.
Okay. Yeah,
So
a lot of people talk about that place too.
it's awesome. So I was in the second Sallyport, the Powder magazine. It was October 31st, so Halloween night of 2009. It was my very first big outing with my paranormal team. And I'm sitting crouched down there in the Powder magazine, just taking picture after picture after picture, and I'm not getting anything.
And this is at nighttime?
Yeah. And I want to say it took like 20, 25 pictures maybe at this point.
Okay.
And then finally I take one more picture and I look down and I can see what looks like a dark shadow figure standing there staring at me. So I zoom in and this thing is opaque. You can't see through it. So it literally did look like a person, but like a shadowy person. So I stood up as fast as I could, which back then was a lot easier because I was a lot younger.
Weren't we all?
Yeah. And I bolted towards the entrance and there was nobody there. And the only way up into that Sallyport is a winding, uneven staircase. And there's just no way in the pitch black, like somebody could have got down it that fast. So that was probably one of my coolest experiences in the Detroit area.
Have you ever been touched?
I think I have. I've definitely gotten like really weird feelings. I was investigating the Titanic Museum in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, Branson, Missouri.
Okay.
And yes, I felt like something was touching me. Like I was overcome by this like cold feeling and I was like shaking and it was cool. I like that stuff though.
Right, exactly. That's what you're doing, right? So we're talking about haunted places in Michigan. Where do you think is maybe the haunted place in Michigan? Do you have any ideas?
The most haunted place in Michigan?
Yeah.
I would say the Leland Hotel, but I will say that there is a place in Bay City, Michigan here where we are actually going to be doing a public investigation at the end of this month, beginning of next month. And it's called the Scottish Rite. And well, it's connected. So it's two buildings. It's the Scottish Rite and the Masonic Temple right here in downtown Bay City. Basically, where the parking lot is now had a church and there was a graveyard there. And the city dug up, they got rid of the church. They dug up all the bodies and moved them. But they think that some have been missed. because these two buildings, they're connected by way of like a hallway, and they see all sorts of apparitions there, floating torsos, floating legs, children. I mean, all different kinds of women spirits. I mean, all different looking women spirits, men with cigars. Sometimes they'll open doors and it's like they're looking back into the 1930s, you know? So it's like every kind of paranormal activity that you can possibly think of has happened in this building. And for the very first time now, at the end of this month and beginning of next, we are going to be offering those public paranormal investigations.
Yeah, now that's probably going to be after or before this airs, since the first one will be airing in October, first of this series. But yeah, you just mentioned the Masonic Temple. Now, there's a Masonic Temple in Detroit that some people say is haunted. Do you know anything about that?
I do know about that because I actually spoke to the people that work there.
Okay.
Now, they kind of told me that what it has been put out about the Masonic Temple is actually not true.
Okay.
So, there was this rumor that the person who was often there had jumped and committed suicide from the top of the building.
I've heard that.
And, yeah, and that's not actually true. So that didn't happen. It's just kind of like a legend.
Right.
But you know, nonetheless, I have heard my friends from the Detroit Paranormal Expedition say that, you know, when they investigated, they had like a box that had moved on the floor or something like that. So they did have something kind of paranormal happen there. But my opinion is that the one in Bay City is way more haunted.
Is that right? Now,
I really do.
You did a book on Bay City, you did a book on Detroit. Have you been around other parts of the state, just, you know, on your own, or just, you know, doing investigations and not writing about it?
Oh yeah, I've been all over the world.
Oh, okay.
In July, we went to Windsor Castle, Tower of London, Paris Catacombs. Yeah, I mean, I've been all over, but probably my favorite location in the United States would probably be the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in Weston, West Virginia.
Yeah, West Virginia. I've been in you know, jails and maximum security prisons down there, you know, before they're closed now, you know. And
Yeah.
One of them is right outside of Brad Paisley's hometown, and I can't think of the name of it, but right outside Wheeling, West Virginia, there's a closed one. So, but yeah, that's super interesting. So this is your time of year, isn't it?
It is. This is when I get the most work, and I can't complain. I've been really busy too. So I'm thankful.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. When I got the email that, you know, you wrote these books and stuff, it's like, yes, this is a person I have to talk to. Anything else you want to add for us here that maybe we should be looking for, that, you know, anything, and maybe a place in Michigan that people can travel that you might, this might be a good time of year to go see that?
Well, I did hear a lot of people tell me to go to Copper Harbor because that's supposed to be like super haunted up there.
You've never been there?
I've never been there,
Oh.
but I want to go. But
Yeah.
I have heard, you know, just to kind of play it cool with some of the properties, because people up there, I'm not saying that they're not nice, but
It's their place, right? It's their land.
It's their land, and I don't want to advise anybody to trespass in any way. But if you get the chance while it's still pretty nice out and there's no snow on the ground, go to Copper Harbor and check it out and let me know, because if it is super, super haunted, I would like to go as well.
Now, you said earlier, you said you got a Facebook and Instagram and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
No website or anything, but we can get a hold of you on Facebook and Instagram?
Yeah, unfortunately, I do not have a website. I know I need to rectify that soon. But in the meantime, you can find me on Facebook or on Instagram. It's literally at author Nicole, Nicole Beauchamp, Beauchamp. And like I said, I do events all year round, all across the whole United States, and especially the state of Michigan. So
Well, we appreciate your time. The Leland Hotel and the Elmwood Cemetery, 2 places I will not be going to anytime soon. So. Well, listen, have a great Halloween and good luck in all your events and everything else you got going on. Okay, Nicole, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us.
All right. Thanks so much for having me. Have a great day.
And there it is, episode 1 of Haunted Michigan. Another episode drops next Monday. Got to thank Nicole Beauchamp, Heather Childers, and Kat Tedsen for the great stories. More coming next week.